Pre-show brought to you in part by cat howling.
Ow. I think I went to school with someone named Cat Howling.
Anyway, welcome to another edition of Last Newsdesk on the Left. I am your host, Mac Paladin, and of course the crew is with me, headed by Adam.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just reassuring a cat here because he's a bit off-put by the sound of another cat.
Yeah, well, I'm over here de-escalating myself.
Okay.
That reference is lightly amusing given our experience on Fragments earlier, but we'll save that for another discussion. Of course, we also have Kevin in the house.
Greetings.
Who is now fresh off the employment train.
Yeah, I'm about to head to the movies, if you will.
Nice. The Golix is here.
I am?
Who told you? You thought? What the hell did you use? Oh, God. Petty fans in the hizzy.
Oh God, where am I?
You're always so confused.
That's what happens when we get locked in a basement. I mean, wait, what?
Anyway.
Right. And, of course, Twilight Winter... Is he here?
I'm here.
Hooray!
Okay. Yeah.
And we
Sorry,
may or may not be able to hear him continually.
Right.
It seems to be fine now. Windows Update decided to be a pain in the butt tonight, even though I had it set to not be a pain in the butt tonight.
Yeah,
It's Windows updates.
When is it never?
Yeah.
When is it not a pain in the butt?
Indeed.
Yeah.
That's why you should have. That's why you scheduled your updates.
I did. I decided to take over anyway, because why not, I guess.
Huh?
I don't know.
That's-
That means you've been pushing it off too long.
Probably.
Oh, it's just very insistent now.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is.
No.
Anyway,
Tippy's on the warpath here because of our topic of discussion tonight.
Yeah.
What,
The
we're
great-
talking about the politics of cats?
Well, almost.
Yeah.
We will be talking about the Great British Politics show-off that's about to occur.
Yeah.
Adam, why don't you get us rolling?
Because, so this past week we had the UK local elections. I guess a bit of a primer on the UK brand of politics, since they have a parliamentary system. Their most important, let's say, direct elections are local elections, because that's where the local places vote for their local politicians who go into the parties, and they're the ones who vote for leadership. And the fallout here has been very bad if you are a fan of Labour.
yeah.
Like,
Which is the
Because-
name of the left party in...
Or the center left party. Now let's give a little primer on the parties here.
It's the lefter of the two major parties.
Yeah, exactly. We have the Conservative Party, aka the Tories as they're called. They are the kings of England, unfortunately, at the moment. You have Labour, the center-left party. You have the main Liberal Party, the Liberal Democrats. You have a party that is farther to the left a little bit in the Greens. And then you have pretty much a bunch of minor, nobody.
Yeah,
This-
you've
party.
got like a null representation of like UKIP and because
Right.
they
It's
were
worth mentioning that the way stuff works, minor nobody parties can have a significant say, since it's
Right.
not
and then
exactly
and then
first
you've got
past
the and then you've
post.
got the Scottish Independence Party and
I was going to get to that point because we're just noting here about England, but then we go to Scotland and you have the Scottish National Party (SNP) and the Scottish side parties of the Labour, Tory, and Lib Dems up there, and the Greens as well.
Mhm.
Then you have Wales, and you have Welsh Labour, which actually was the only bright spot for the Labour Party that night, along with some other mayoral wins. And also you have the Welsh nationalists, aka Plaid Cymru, and you have the Welsh Conservatives, Lib Dems, etc. And there was nothing in Northern Ireland for the most part, but you'd have a whole nother mess there. But basically what we're talking about here is Scotland, Wales, and England here. And outside of Wales and outside of Manchester and some other mayoral areas, Labour got screwed big time. And,
I mean, did Labour... I think the question is more, did Labour get screwed or did Labour screw Labour? Because, let's be honest here, they've been in a downward spiral for a few years, and a lot of it's their own making.
Yeah. See, Labour has been a mess since they lost in 2010 to David Cameron and David Clegg, a.k.a. what I lovingly refer to as the CNC hung Parliament factory. It has been a complete and total mess since then. You had the Ed Miliband attempt that failed, and then after Ed Miliband failed, they decided to go completely off the rails and go with the Jeremy Corbyn experience, which was a total and complete disaster for them. And then after the Jeremy Corbyn experience, then when they finally had the worst loss in over a century in 19, they decided to dump him for Keir Starmer, who has done absolutely nothing for them to this point, given them absolutely nothing to run on or nothing to champion. And so it has been up to pretty much the Labour people on the ground to come up with things, and a lot of them failed because, well, why go for someone who has nothing when you have someone with something? And then those of them who did have something basically won. But for a lot of them, they failed because they had nothing to run with. Because Keir Starmer has given them nothing to run with. Now, they still have 3 years before the next general election to come up with something. But, you know, when you lose a seat in Parliament that you've held since 1964, that's kind of a problem. Now, they got 3 more years to turn this around because their next general election, when the Parliament's up for grabs again, they have 3 more years to turn it around, but boy, you're starting from a floor. The only question is, do you drop further down or do you go up? I say good luck.
Yeah, basically, Labour is the inept neoliberal character that leftists think that the Dems are.
Pretty much, yes. Although there are some places where that's not necessarily the case, but for the most part, yes.
Right. Look, Labour has completely lost the plot because they should have been the Brexit opposition party. And that never happened. Like,
of course, the reason for that is, well, this thing happened during the Corbyn experience, and, you know, Brexit was right up Corbyn's alley, and on the one hand. And on the other hand, a lot of the places where Labour was traditionally powerful actually voted to leave. So that put them in a box.
I suppose compounding the situation this cycle is on the right. There was a couple of quote unquote rising right-wing parties that are no longer all that relevant. That is UKIP and the Brexit Party. And if you can't figure out why that's the case, you know, it's like, well, Brexit is done.
Quick interruption here. Kevin, did you retweet?
I did. I thought I did. Did you not see it?
Nope, I see no notification.
Well, I did just like
He did a quote tweet.
Yeah, I did a quote tweet 14 minutes ago. Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes those don't count because Twitter is stupid.
Yeah, I don't see any.
Yep.
I always see your
Well,
mention except
that's
for today.
Yeah, but I quote tweeted it like 15 minutes ago. So
Huh.
Yeah. We
on your end.
anyway.
Anyway.
Anywho,
So, outside of the continued collapse of labor, the S&P had a pretty good night.
Yeah, although they didn't achieve what they wanted to in getting a majority by themselves, they still gained their vote share. They still have a strong government on their in terms of a pro-independence government, and
Probably not enough to actually force a significant referendum or anything.
Yeah, maybe not. But at the same time, they're still relatively stable, if not growing a little bit stronger. And they have been in power up there in Scotland for about just as long as the Conservatives have in England. So,
Yep.
I mean, that tells you everything there. I mean, really, these elections pretty much were about, finishing the rewiring and rewriting of the British politics from Brexit, because like you said, we had like 2 cycles of UKIP and then Brexit parties splitting the right vote. Those are gone because they're not needed anymore. So now this is basically a firm rewriting of the map, let's say. Of course, there's also the question of what the hell's going to happen in Northern Ireland, which is blowing up right now. But yeah, this was basically that, plus pretty much everybody getting a vaccine honeymoon boost, because you had the Tories, you had the S&P, and also Welsh Labour. So that's basically what happened there. Basically, the final rewriting of the Brexit, rewriting of the political map, and pretty much setting the table for the next 3 years.
Yes. So, it's just, I can't call it a mess, in the sense of what the voters want, because the voters have clearly expressed what they want. It's just, unfortunately,
they made clear multiple elections now. So
yeah, and it's also, it's how do I phrase this? It's also Brexit hasn't been the all world shaking doom prophecy that a lot of people thought it would be. I'm not saying that.
Well, in fairness, there was another one of those.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the thing. And although, if you actually look below the COVID top and look into what's going on, the cracks are forming.
No, I acknowledge that, but it's also, remember, this was supposed to be a big fucking uppercut right out the gate, and that just did not happen. In most cases. Yes, well, I know Northern Ireland, but, it's, and the COVID stuff has just sucked all of the oxygen out of the room in terms of...
There was also a big thing the other, I think it was a week or so now, that there's a little tit for tat between one of the parts of Britain and France. So, yeah, that's the thing, that they sent 2 Royal Navy ships to protect against French fishermen who are upset about not being able to fish in the area called Jersey. So, yeah, there's
the old one.
Yes, there are cracks.
Old Jersey, not New Jersey.
Old Jersey, yes. So, yeah, there are cracks, and COVID has kind of masked a lot of things, but they're there. They're just waiting to be the poison of the well, and it hasn't yet.
Yeah. I'm sure we'll be revisiting this somewhere down the line.
We will, because, yeah, I mean, part of the thing, but anyway.
Yeah, I suppose scuttling back over to this side of the pond, I guess the most immediate political thing to address is the fate of Liz Cheney, because this just happened this morning.
And
though it's been a long time.
The Republicans have decided that the one principle she had is one too many.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah,
is
Scruples
not a
are for
shock.
losers.
Well, I mean, it's the fucking Republican Party. They don't know what these things mean, and they don't care to know.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, it's like.
I think it's far
your
worse than that.
reward-
I think it's far worse than that. I think they know and they just don't care. Or they know
Yeah.
and they're manipulating it for their benefit, which is actually worse on several levels.
It depends on the politician, I think. Like, I think Kevin McCarthy genuinely is that fucking stupid.
I'd
Like,
go with
he
that,
just-
yeah.
Like, he just seems like he is genuinely dumb.
Yeah,
as opposed to Mitch McConnell, who is smart, but, is cynical as fuck. There is a difference.
yeah.
You know, because because Kevin McCarthy didn't realize that the knives are already out for him. Like, because
He's
There's-
just an ass kisser. Clear. He's a suck up.
He's a bootlicker.
no,
He
Yeah.
has no soul. He has no compass. He's just basically trying to do whatever works for him. And his predecessors could tell him it's not going to work out well for him at the end of the
Yes.
day.
even if he does get the gavel, like, there's no Republican Speaker of the House that can figure out how to control the fucking Freedom Caucus. And that's a fucking problem, because the Freedom Caucus is big enough to gum up any Republican plans. This is what happened to Boehner at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's like, and also Ryan too eventually.
Yeah.
So it's like these Republicans, Kevin is trying to control the children while pleasing everybody else. That does not work.
That's a recipe for disaster. That's a losing prop.
Yes,
Well, I mean,
he's done it multiple times.
you could say it just fucking happened, because to break things down, it's not just about Liz Cheney. It's about her fucking replacement. What is it, Eliza? How do you pronounce it?
Elise Stefanik.
Yeah, Elise Stefanik. Because here's the thing: she's professing to be a Trumper, but her actual voting record is quite moderate. And this is an actual problem.
Yeah, she built herself up as young, new, moderate. That's what she built herself up as when she first ran for Congress and got the job in Congress. She ran as a young, new, moderate. And then Trump came along, and then her district got Trumpy as hell, and, well, she decided to flip the script in order to protect her ass. Well, turns out that you can't leave your moderate past behind.
Because, actual conservatives, actual voting conservatives, they're pissed off at this. Because,
not all
Liz
of them.
Cheney's...
Good number of
Liz Cheney's voting record, she voted for Trump 90% of the time.
Mhm.
Like,
With you mean?
with. So, and her quote-unquote reward is to be fucking sidelined because, well, the one principle is she won't repeat the big lie. And
We're talking about Liz here, right?
Yeah.
we're talking about Liz. And
let's talk about-
this is actual scary shit here. Because, Liz Cheney is an awful person with an awful voting record, but she has been consistent in her criticisms of Trump and the stolen election lie and all that shit. The Republican leadership is basically coalescing around the big lie. And if you
Right.
don't...
And he did that. They did that on January 6th, in fact.
But it's like
this is not none of this should be a surprise. None of this should
it's not a
kid.
It's not a surprise, but the problem is, keep in mind, at the end of the day, democracy still works. The question is now becoming, what about 2022? What about 2024?
At the end of the day, democracy still worked, and some people have decided that they're not okay with this.
Now.
Yeah, because there's going to be a fucking reckoning about this shit.
Well, and it's starting to happen already. Over 100 Republicans threaten to split unless GOP moves away from Trump. That came out on the Daily Mail today, as reported by MSN and Microsoft News. Literally today.
Yeah.
They signed a letter saying this bullshit's got to stop, or we're going to split the party and we're going to start our own.
Well, yeah, because
do it or you know what? That's the kind of threat that says to me, either do it or shut up.
Mm-hmm.
Because they ain't changing. So either start that third party up tomorrow or next week, or shut up and stop talking.
Well, you know how politicians work. They got to do an exploratory move, and they got to put out some information, some feelers, and put out some polls.
We don't perfect that. When's the last time you see it in an exploratory committee that's come back and gone, no, not really. You can't run. You don't need to run. No.
I'm just saying this is what the organizers of this movement have said. The letter titled "A Call for American Renewal" is an exploratory move towards forming a breakaway party. Two of its organizers said. I'm quoting the article directly here, just so we're on.
Yeah. I'm not talking to you. I'm just. It's like, look.
No, I know what you're saying. Why do you think I have this kind of tongue-in-cheek tone?
Yeah. It's like if you're gonna do it, do it. Otherwise, shut up and go into the voting booth in the privacy of the voting booth and vote for a Republican. Because you sure as hell not vote for a Democrat if you're talking like this. So either shut up and vote for a Republican or make this party happen. There's no other way about it because you're not going to sit home.
Right.
Or write in somebody.
I think you'll find that many Americans are perfectly okay with sitting at home.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we'll call this group the Lincoln Project Republicans.
I guess.
That's the nickname I'm going to give it for now. We'll see if it sticks.
Or if they do make that party, we'll then call them by that party name. But it's like, look, either make that party happen or shut up, because because probably a lot of you probably didn't vote for Biden. You either voted for the Republican on the hush, not Trump necessarily, but Republicans on the ballot, or you wrote in somebody, or you sat at home. Yeah, a lot of them I know did. So, put up or shut up time.
Yeah, but putting that aside, the other problem is, Liz Cheney. So, there have been some Republican reps on Twitter that have been celebrating this maneuver, apparently forgetting the fact that she's still in Congress. She's... she's been stripped of her leadership position, but she's still a congresswoman. So
she's still
maybe not for long though, because she's polling badly in her home state. Wyoming is not thrilled with her.
But she's a Cheney, meaning she's not going to go away even in that scenario.
Oh, of course not.
Yeah,
of course.
Even if she has to shoot several people in the face with a low caliber
on Fifth Avenue.
Yeah.
Well, on Fifth Street and give me a town in Wyoming.
If I can finish my point,
Cheyenne.
If I can't, if I can finish my point here, it's she's no longer beholden to Republican leadership, which means she can make bashing Trump her full-time gig or whatever.
Yeah. She can talk as much as she wants. She can go on TV as much as she wants. And also, and not just her. She might even call up her. Call up her old pop. and get him involved.
Yeah.
So that way Darth Vader himself can start force choking everybody.
If he's lucid.
The ultimate point here is it's more the GOP fighting amongst itself and not Dems, which is, always
refreshing.
Which is usually good for Dems.
Yeah, because just last week in the news cycle, they were posting articles left and right about how Biden faces challenges because of a fractured Democratic Party, backbiting each other.
What?
Yeah, the Democrats are fractured. Yeah, sure.
Well,
yeah.
but you have
internal problems, but it's not an outright all-out fracture. Okay.
Well, and it's hardly a rebellion either. It's like they express. I guess the problem is that the loyalty purity people on the right are insistent that anytime somebody criticizes the party, they're automatically voting against them.
They're starting to become like the fucking Soviet Communist Party, quite frankly.
Yeah.
Because especially this Trumpified version, because I've never seen the Republican Party do this before. They've coalesced their fealty around the fucking guy that lost you the House, lost you the Senate, and lost you the presidency, and some governorships, and you lost shit under this guy.
And there's a remote possibility he might go to jail.
Yeah, but unfortunately, he also got more people to vote for him than last time. He also has a good percentage of the white vote. He also got more votes in terms of minority voters. So it's
But here's the other problem. He's not on the ballot personally for another 4 years, maybe.
True.
So,
and remember the fact what happens when he was not on the ballot. So it's like they need him. If they don't have him, they're screwed, and they know it. That's why they're doing this.
We'll just call them. We'll just call them Breslov Republicans.
Yeah.
Like that, but yeah, it's like they need him to draw his people out for them. That's what this is about. He lost everything, but at the same time, he has an out of this world stranglehold on the base of the party. You cannot get that's what this is about.
Unless they're a federal judge.
Yeah. I do wonder how long that'll last, though, because he's already fading. And
keeping him blocked on social media has been a boon.
Yeah, I'm like
fading from the mid-80s to the mid-70s. I mean, but that's still.
Yeah, it's hilarious. It is, speaking of which, kind of hilarious how badly he's attempted to get his stuff back on fucking Twitter and Facebook.
Well, this thing in Arizona, we talked about Arizona last week and the recount efforts.
Yeah.
This thing in Arizona is actually, I've been watching the news articles, and every time they talk about Trumpism and the current face of the Republican Party, this bullshit recount here in Arizona handled by QAnon is actually, I would say, a very large focal point in fracturing the party. Because Liz Cheney was one of the first to denounce it. One of the first Republicans to actually denounce the effort. Then they ouster her.
Mm-hmm.
And now there's stories coming out of Trump's camp where they're talking about how he is now on the offensive, trying to push the narrative that this group will somehow overturn the election, and he's obsessed with this, just talking about it non-stop. And apparently,
obsessed with the stuff with the freaking lawsuits and everything back in the late last year. So this is not a surprise that he's decided to obsess over this.
Right. So now he's created his own platform.
Yes.
so that way he could sit there and sell, from the desk of Donald J. Trump or whatever. Is that the name of it or whatever?
Yeah, that's what it is.
And so now that's out there, and it's just like, and now we have this, the 100 Republicans threatening to split. So you could definitely see that's why they're trying to shift. They're trying to shift the narrative to the we'll call it fake news and use their own term against them. That the Democrats are the ones who are the one doing the fracturing.
Yeah, right, sure.
Well,
okay.
I mean, educated liberals have always expressed a difference of opinion. The difference is that they're smart enough, for the most part, to choose logic and reason over emotion when it comes to voting.
Yeah, at the end of the day, when the brights are light, you haven't really seen Democrats kill a Democratic proposal. Now, maybe it's delayed it or put it on pause for a day or a week or so, but it hasn't been a complete and total,
wash
tear
out.
it up, put it up. Yeah, put it out,
It's nothing.
Unlike
the crew is nothing like the Freedom Caucus.
Yes.
They're there. They're there to let us know. They're there to let us know when something stinks. But at the same time, they're like, but it's better than the alternative.
Yeah, it's like yeah, they grumble, they moan, they complain, sure. But at the end of the day, it's like they don't shut things down. I mean, and also another thing that's important. Democrats don't put bills on the floor that are not guaranteed to pass.
Right.
That's another thing that we don't do, that the Republicans do. So, but more to the point here, look, we have differences, sure. We have, philosophical differences, but at the end of the day, we're the ones that get stuff done. Yeah. We're the better job creating party. We're the party that's actually cut deficits and turned deficits into surpluses. The Republican Party has lied to people suggesting that they can do that, and they have never done it.
Yeah.
Well, they're trying to take credit for things that were in the COVID bill that all of them voted against.
Yeah.
Granted, I think the Dems need to do a better job of blasting them about this shit, so that doesn't become effective. But I suppose moving to the doing things camp, what is the latest on infrastructure?
Looks like we're probably going. Well, it'll depend on what happens between now and Memorial Day, but right now it's probably looking more like we're going to get a bipartisan compromise here. Because it's like, look, people want to get something done here. I think the hunger for pretty much reconciliation further and further is loosening and disappearing. So it's basically like, it looks like what's going to happen is we're going to have physical infrastructure done in a bipartisan way, and maybe whatever else was in that proposal that is not related to infrastructure, and I put that in air quotes, will probably be rolled over into the American Families Plan, which will be a reconciliation, but maybe not, and probably might not even happen at all. So, but we'll see. Basically, we'll figure out what's going to happen within the next 2 weeks, because they're basically the mental date of what the hell we're going to do here. Basically, Memorial Day.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing is, Republicans do seem to be planning on upping their price tag.
Yeah, and that's the pay force that's the problem. But on the other hand, them upping the price tag could move the ball along here, because, again, they didn't do that the first time. They didn't up the price tag. They're doing it here, so at least there's movement.
Yeah. The place where this is probably going to fall apart is over the taxes.
Right.
Because right now the Republicans are still being adamant that the tax cuts don't be touched. And for the Dems, any sort of regressive tax increase is a non-starter.
Right.
So,
yeah, but basically at this point, it's like, it looks like what the case is that what can you guys give me in 2 weeks? That can pass.
Like, and this is probably the way to do this. Even if the Republicans are operating in bad faith, in order to placate, say, the Manchins to the world, the the Dems do have to negotiate in good faith. It's like if you want.
It's basically like, yeah, I know that you guys stink, but hey, you say that my plan sucks. What do you have? Give me what you have.
It's like it's really a win-win. Like, either you get the Republicans on board, or the Dems did their best. They actually went to the table, but it's the Republicans who said, who didn't want to do X, Y, or Z, and then you move on without them. It's like there's no urgency attached to this, like COVID, so you can plan this out.
Yeah,
and and we still got a reconciliation bullet if it comes down to it. So
so keep an eye out for the next 2 weeks, and maybe things get accelerated by that freaking bridge that had a big freaking crack in Memphis.
I'm like, well, it's also we'll see how the pipeline cyber attack affects things, because cybersecurity may become a big part of this infrastructure bill.
Yes, because
Biden already signed an executive order to that regard to try to move things along.
Yeah, because and let's break this down here, because this probably will not be a topic of discussion as of next week. So the major pipeline that supplies, I think the percentage was 75% of the gas of this side of the country here, shut down because of ransomware, which is basically malware that is designed to lock up and threaten your files unless you pay a ransom. Specifically, Bitcoin ransom. Because, of course, it's Bitcoin, because these are nerds.
No, it's because it's untraceable.
Right, but that too. But thankfully, this ransomware attack was by complete and utter amateurs. And they were able to figure out ways around this attack, basically through backups and through proxies that basically tracked the internet connection of these attackers, so they could basically cut those connections off. So the pipeline company is not going to have to pay a single dime to these people, and this entire group has now been fully exposed. And they're now going like, oh wait, we didn't meant to go after vital infrastructure. We only goes to companies.
Yeah, it's like, you know what? It's considered an act of treason to initiate a fire sale.
So
we had a movie about this starring Bruce Willis.
Yes, yeah. Lesson here is that ransomware is a thing. Make sure that you find a way to back up your computers always, so that something like this does not happen to you. And the fact that excuse me, 85% of our infrastructure is privatized opens us up to this. Especially when a lot of those private companies are not prepared for ransomware. And we should be thanking our lucky stars that these are amateurs and nobodies, instead of a sophisticated group, or a sophisticated internet army, if you will.
Said I don't actually have an actual source for this thing that I saw, and I can't find one, so I won't repeat. I won't repeat hearsay, but it's funny.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving to New York. So the New York's
Down.
yeah, the New York's mayor's race is
Being led by another billionaire?
I'm like,
I mean, New York's
well,
got enough of them.
Yeah.
Enough clown apparently.
Yeah. But more to the point, I suppose, we got to talk about Israel.
Indeed.
Because
I'm sure we want to, because this is a topic of discussion that has a lot of landmines here.
Indeed.
I don't want to,
Yeah.
but it's kind of too big to ignore.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've been really loud about it, but I have to say that yes, this is something that you have to be very, very careful in talking about. Very careful.
Well, I think the easiest way to deal with it would be to talk about the facts of the case. The simple fact of the matter is that we have a mayoral election going on in New York City. Andrew Yang, immediately following an attack on Hamas by the Israeli military,
Yes.
decided to tweet a pro-Israel sentiment, and now he's facing backlash for it. I think that's the most sensitive way to put this.
Yes. But that's right.
His position on being pro-Israel has never been a secret. So this makes him the most popular Democrat amongst conservatives.
Yeah.
And also, let's be real, a lot of people in America are pro-Israel just because it sounds right,
Well,
based on history classes and stuff that they've heard.
Well,
I mean,
And a lot of people haven't really investigated particularly far into a lot of the specifics of
in fairness,
Israel's conduct and
right. We're heavily invested in the recreation of the Jewish state, and so as a result, I believe that the American public feels a responsibility to this. I'd say that's
we could also talk about the fact that the reason that we're supportive of Israel is because, that's where Jesus was from, and when Jesus comes back, there's the hope that all of those Jews are converted. Let's say.
we've got to get all of them back there before the apocalypse can happen.
Yeah.
I felt like my vague responsibility statement sounded better, but the truth only hurts if you're on the wrong side of it.
Yeah, it's like, you got to be careful about it, but it's like at the same time, you got to say the truth. You got to say what you're seeing. You got to see what's happening here.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing. You can be pro Jewish state, and yet still be critical of a lot of their actions.
Yes.
I know it's an amazing concept that things can have nuance and that certain elements can be separated from each other, but this is a fact we need to get right with. Is the fact that Israel has a right to exist, but they don't have a unilateral right to do whatever the hell they want.
Yes. Look, I have always
any more than we do.
I have put this forward as Israel has promoted itself for the last decade plus, longer than that, as the only democracy in the Middle East. Okay? They have promoted themselves as that. So I have treated them as a democracy, meaning they are open to criticism. Now, the way that you do this is you do not use the J word or the Z word. I avoid using those words because I know that trips the minds. You focus on the fact that they are a democracy, that they promote themselves as a democracy, and as a democracy, you have to criticize how that democracy works. And that is a democracy that over the last 20 years, or the last 25 years since Benjamin Netanyahu went in there the first time, because this last couple of terms has been his second run as PM, let's note.
Right.
Since the first time he stepped in, the Israeli democracy has gotten further and further to the right, especially on the topic of the Palestinian question. It is to the right to the point where even the Israeli opposition is not necessarily on board for a real, lasting peace agreement.
Right.
And nobody wants to hear that. Nobody wants to hear that. Nobody wants to believe that because, we have to automatically believe that the Israeli government is right always and profusely. But the fact of the matter is that Israel, since at least minus maybe a couple of years in between, since 1998, when Netanyahu went there the first time, has been in no want or business of a Palestinian peace agreement. And any suggestions that they have been PR. Like, there have been people that have entered the Israeli government that have actually called Palestinian children snakes. Okay? That is what they have called them. The Israeli government has relied specifically on a coalition involving the main Likud party and far-right nationalist parties. And those far-right nationalist parties want nothing to do with the Palestinians at all. They would rather they be dead. And in fact, what you're seeing on the ground inside of Israel right now, with mobs of people beating up Palestinians in their homes, is part of that.
It has a certain ironic ring to it, doesn't it?
Yes. Look, we can talk about the Hamas and Islamic Jihad and all of those terrorist attacks all we want to. We can condemn them all we want to, and we should and we will. But you can't just do that and ignore the mobs of Israelis beating Palestinians up in their homes. You can't ignore the Israelis at the Western Wall cheering at what looked to be the burning of the third holiest site in Islam. Okay? You can't ignore the fact that the Israeli government has taken more and more of what is supposed to be Palestinian land for a state. I mean, you can't ignore these things. You can't ignore these things. And the longer that we ignore these things, the faster it is that there's not going to be a two-state solution here, and that this mess is going to get even messier, even bloodier, and even more of a catastrophe. Now notice, over the course of that little rant that I had there, that I didn't use two specific words. You can you can easily talk about the situation without going into anti-Semitism land. It's really easy to do. Okay? So, I've saved my piece on this. I did not want to talk about it, but, you can't not ignore it because it's happening. And children and people are getting killed right now.
Right. That's the other.
Yeah. When people are getting
that's the other.
People are getting kicking out of their homes. When stuff like this is happening in the Holy Land, you can't not talk about it.
Yeah. And probably best to move on. Like,
Take clean right now, please.
well, yeah, I guess moving on to other New York institutions that
Yes.
are failing badly. Saturday Night Live.
Well, I guess
Like-
I guess we can't have a conversation about the direction that Saturday Night Live is going without talking about Elon Musk and his blood emerald family.
This is exactly where we're going because, for reasons of stunt casting, Elon Musk hosted Saturday Night Live this past Saturday. I did not watch because I do not hate myself, and
Yeah.
it's not.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like
I mean, Elon Musk.
Lord does one of these type of things every so often, to try to jazz
Well,
things
yeah,
up,
it's May. It's called sweeps. It's called stunt casting, and it worked. Like
It works.
My favorite thing to come out of this, though, is the new Twitter account, Italian Elon Musk.
it's not.
I
not a
invented
new account.
other ravioli, and I dodged the taxes.
I'm like, oh. But
Why was he dressed as Wario?
They were doing a skit about
Wario's funny.
Go ahead, Adam.
Okay, apparently they were doing a skit about something to do with Mushroom Kingdom and Mario. Look, I didn't watch it. I just saw the fucking pictures, and I don't know. Apparently, they discovered Newgrounds in like 2005. That's where this fucking humor came from. I do appreciate the pics of Elon Musk as Wario. I can see the dignity dying in his fucking still image.
I just love the fact that it's become the new Bernie Sanders meme where it's everywhere now.
Yeah.
Because
of course it is because it's Elon fucking Musk. Yeah.
I invented another ravioli.
Yeah. Because the internet has to be fucking weird about Elon fucking Musk.
Right.
Yes.
Like, just think of that other meme picture. Constructive criticism of Elon Musk. We're nerds on the internet. Yeah. Like,
I had somebody on Twitter arguing with me about how great Elon Musk was and the fact that he wants all of his cars made in America, and I said, I don't know what the fuck you're smoking, dude. He's trying to move the entire Tesla operation out of California into Shanghai.
Yeah.
Texas.
Except for the battery cell, which is made with Australian lithium. And I'm like, until it moves to China, and then they'll have to use Chinese lithium because they won't be allowed to use Australian lithium.
But you're still using exported lithium.
Right.
I mean, to be fair, they could use Australian lithium that the Chinese government had purchased from Australia.
There you go. That's the ticket there, isn't it?
Yeah. But it's like, this was a total rubberneck anyway. Like, outside of Elon.
Although apparently it was more meh or whatever than absolute disaster. So I guess
it seems to be depending on the sketch. Like outside of the Wario, it seems Gen Z. What was it? Generation Z Hospital or whatever. That seems to be an all-time worst sketch. Because
what is it? Michael Chi said that it was that he had no idea how bad it was conceptually.
Yeah, like it's just, oh boy, it's old people thinking what young people talk. This never works.
Taylor's almost time.
The most awkward part for me was Elon and his confession that he's on the spectrum. And then
Get out of here.
What?
No, I'm not talking about Elon. It's like, Elon, I'm on the spectrum. It's like, dude, don't say that.
No, that's what I'm saying.
First of all, he didn't say he was on the spectrum. He used the old terminology.
That's what made it more cringe. That's what made it more cringe. I mean, I'm saying it the right way for.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know what you meant, and I'm not being angry at you. It's like, he used the old term, and then he also said, I'm the first with this that ever hosted this show.
Bullshit.
Yes.
Bullshit.
The first.
Dan Aykroyd going here going like, what?
Yeah. Like, so.
That's
Elon,
like
you're not.
Yeah, that's like Donald Trump and his giant wins.
Yeah, he's the first openly, autistic spectrum person to host SNL.
Bullshit.
Like, I'm like, and even if that's the case, that doesn't excuse your crimes.
Yeah, I mean.
Well, that and the fact that his mother's literally Cruella de Vil.
Yeah.
What are these rich people and having parents who look stereotypically evil?
Like Disney villains?
Yes. Like, we all see the pictures of Donald Trump's mother. right?
Oh,
Yeah. Now
God.
she looks like she eats puppies.
What? Like, what is with these rich people having parents who look like stereotypical villains? I mean, it's just wild. Like somebody, I don't know what, I don't remember, but like somebody connected her to Mom from Futurama. So, I mean, that's how that goes. But
Jesus
it's like
Christ.
the world that we live in, ladies and gentlemen, the world that we live in.
Yeah, it's like
yes,
it's like
indeed.
it's like back to the original point. This whole cringeworthy cold open and monologue was just like, do not try to excuse your crimes by attempting to be a mouthpiece for something to which you have no legitimate claim.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
You know, these kinds of out of left field on air revelations are cynical attempts at deflection.
It's also, dear God, we do not need a revival of mid-2000s autism spectrum discourse.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, if you missed this particular bit of shit, it's that period of time when the old terminology caught on in the public consciousness, up to and including a South Park episode about it, that led to a lot of people fucking self-diagnosing and proclaiming that they had the disorder, and that gave them license to be assholes. No.
Yeah.
No. I'm like, this can go fuck right off. Then, and if you're planning on doing it now, like doubly so. Elon Musk being on the spectrum does not give you a fucking license to be a shithead on the internet.
Right.
Yeah.
Granted, if you're supporting Elon Musk anyway, you tend to be that. Because you can't handle the fact that your Jesus God is fallible, so fallible in so many ways. And you just feel the need to defend his honor because of, cult of personality.
Yeah.
God.
It's like he's a blood gem billionaire. He doesn't need your salvation.
Yeah.
No, but he's relatable because he goes on to fucking Joe Rogan or whatever the fuck. Like,
Yeah.
He smoked some weed with Joe Rogan, and so now he's cool. Now he's cool with the Audis.
I guess.
Yes.
I guess speaking of,
It's got that
I
dope one too.
I guess on the other spectrums of billionaires, Bill and Melinda Gates. So,
Oh god.
they're getting it.
It's going well.
Yeah.
That is going
the
very well.
the new Prince of Pedophile Island.
Yeah.
Yeah, that whole thing apparently. Like,
I'm like,
that may be
the first thing that came to mind as soon as I read that article and the name Jeffrey Epstein popped into the print, I was like, Bill, you founded an organization that focuses on education and children. You do not want to be within the same fucking atmosphere as this person.
And yeah, that's apparently what Melinda also said, and I guess that she had enough of it.
It didn't sink in because he and members of the foundation were just hanging out with the guy 5 years after his conviction.
Yeah, but he's got those big old planes. He's got
Not his accusation, after his conviction and house arrest.
He was a good buddy. He's a good friend. It's like,
I'm twitching right now. I can't even articulate anymore.
yeah, it's like, it's like.
I'm no Bill Gates. I've been in the computer industry. I was in the
That's
computer.
probably why the left.
I've been in the computer industry now between between actual work and streaming and everything else. I have been in the computer industry for 27 fucking years. I am no Bill Gates stan, but I've always tried to give him a fair shake. You know? But this is it. I'm fucking done.
Yeah.
It doesn't even matter. It doesn't even matter if he did nothing. Just deliberately choosing to associate with someone that I would politely call a dirtbag.
Melinda, is that you talking?
I'm just saying. I can't even be fair anymore.
You gotta
He
have
doesn't
lines.
deserve it.
Yeah, you gotta have one. You gotta have a line, you know?
Yeah.
And I shouldn't even
That
be this
being
furious
said-
about it because I don't have that much investment in Bill Gates or anything that he's doing. Every time he speaks, he shows that he's one of the smartest dumb people I know.
Yeah. he's one of those kind of smart people that's like, yeah, he's smart and intelligent, but at the same time he's actually not. I mean, you lose a stable relationship and probably a good chunk of money because you hang around because of one of your friends that you can't quit, even though it's quite clear that he's supposed to be persona non grata.
Well, it's going to cost them a lot of money because there's no
So that-
prenup.
Yep, idiot. And they're both idiots for that, by the way.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, I guess
Yeah.
they thought they didn't need it, but it's like, you know, and then there's all these people running
Obviously,
around.
the prenup.
Yeah, I know.
You cannot predict that you'll be stable from zero to the end. Like, you can't predict that you'll be basically still in love and still together when you're both dead. You got to have a prenup.
At least if you're rich.
Yes, and yeah, Bill Gates is going to regret that decision big time.
Well, because he's also going to have to divvy up his shares of Microsoft.
Yeah, and also probably his kids are probably going to want some more than the $10 million that he's giving them. Yeah,
Well,
I don't think that's money.
Now they did something interesting there. They waited till all the kids were over 18 before they announced the divorce. So the kids aren't getting shit.
Yeah, well, we'll see about that one.
I mean, at least not until Melinda dies.
Yeah, well, we'll see about that one.
Because they were both pretty adamant about the idea of divesting all of their wealth to charity so that their kids don't get nothing.
Yeah, well, we'll see about that one, Chief. We'll see about that one because
The only way they'd be able to invalidate a living will like that would be if it had a dead hand clause in it and it was drafted in California.
Yeah, that's true. That's true, but you know, I'm pretty sure that they're gonna at least try to get some more, whatever it takes. Because
Well, I suspected that would be the case regardless, because you know it's like giving away $150 billion fortune to charity or to be managed by a foundation that is now proven to be employing scumbags.
yeah, a front. It's a front.
Yeah. You know. And of course, Bill also left his position as chairman of the board at Microsoft.
Yep. And I bet people at Microsoft are going, "Thank God we don't have to deal with this."
I mean, he didn't run day to day, that's for sure. But oh my God.
Yeah, if he was still chairman, I mean, even if he was still chairman, it's like you're the chairman of Microsoft, you're the chairman of the board of the company, and people up top are gonna have to be asked about it. But thank God he's off of the chairman of Microsoft, so now they don't have to talk about it.
Well, I mean, it was difficult because he owned what, like 51% of the stock or something like that.
He's also still the founder of the company.
Right. So
Like,
it's like
and
you
he
can't
says-
ouster you can't ouster
Yeah.
somebody unless you can muster a controlling vote against him.
Yeah.
He had to voluntarily step down from that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. You know, and this is you know what this is? And it's weird, and it's really weird that Bill Gates felt the need to do that. But maybe it's his we'll say, and I'm going to say this very tongue in cheek, his rags to riches, meteoric rise to fame, right? But it's like a lot of the reason that people hung around with Jeffrey Epstein, regardless of what they knew or didn't know about him, was the whole idea of like basking in the glory of powerful people.
Yeah.
So whether they were there for sexual favors or just because he was a billionaire that threw awesome parties.
Yeah.
You know,
he had money.
Yeah, he had money, and everybody wanted to bask in his power, and you know, and it's like that shit needs to stop.
He had an island. Yes,
that shit needs to stop. It's like you need to stop hero worshiping other human beings. I can appreciate people's art. I can appreciate their creations. I can appreciate what they do for society.
Especially if that idolization is specifically based upon the concept of wealth.
Right.
And not upon anything real.
We do still. It's been a little bit decreased, but there's still an issue with there being far too many people who are famous for being famous, basically.
Well, and that's because people still cling to this warped idea, which was invented by rich people, by the way, to keep us constantly divided. But it was built on this warped idea that anybody can become a billionaire if you just work hard enough.
Yeah.
And it's like, but that's a lie. We all know that's a lie designed to keep people enslaved.
Yeah, it's not like most of the people who become billionaires actually became billionaires.
I don't use the E word lightly.
Yeah.
Do not use that word lightly. But it is exactly what they're trying to do. They're trying to keep us effectively, metaphorically shackled to these exploitative positions, these exploitative jobs that make them richer and keeps us where we are in perpetuity.
Yeah.
You know, which dovetails, of course, into the last point related to this, the passive boycotts that are now occurring with people not going back to work until the wages are actually worth it.
Finally learning from the Romans.
Yeah. You know, it's like this is. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, there was an incident in the early Republic days where the patrician class finally abused the plebeians a bit too much, and they just left the city. Like until their demands were met.
I heard a story about like fast food restaurants and stuff like that in like rural Arkansas that were putting out that were like begging people to come to work for them. They had to work. The stores were open reduced hours. They had to close on some days and so on and so forth because they didn't have enough personnel. And they finally started making the inexorable march towards raising their offer. You know, from $7.25 an hour minimum wage to $11 to $12 to I've heard as high as $13, just to get people to apply. And then these insulting, and then these ridiculous offers from these franchises that are like, well, we'll give you a
free Whopper with job application.
Yeah. I saw the best TikTok today, where the guy was talking about German reactions to dining in America, and he starts talking about the recommended tip, and he says 20%. That seems a little high, you know, and it's like, well, that's because
we don't actually pay them, you see.
Yeah, he's like, do you not receive compensation for your work? And he's like, well, it's lower to keep operating costs down. And he says, then the business should not exist. If they cannot afford to pay you a living wage.
The tipping argument is a bit more complicated than that, because there are advocates for the tipping because they would make more from that than from a steady salary.
But the tipping wage is bullshit, though. The tipping
I know.
wage is
I'm just
bullshit. And the penalties for not making tips, especially if you get a string of customers who are like, tipping, that's for plebs, you know.
Right.
Plus, some restaurants let everybody keep their own tips. Some restaurants split up the tips evenly between everyone who worked that shift.
And
Some
that's
restaurants
criminal.
just fucking steal the tips because they can do that.
Yeah, I mean, if they can afford to pay the
Like, not legally, but they can get away with it.
it's like strangely they can afford to pay the cooks and other guest staff at least minimum wage, but they can't be bothered to pay the serving staff that because you'll just get tips, and that helps keep our operating costs down. And it's like, well, your operating costs are of no interest to me. Putting food on my own table after I'm done putting food on your guest's table is what I'm concerned about. And that's what every worker is concerned about, and that's why the whole, it's like in Europe they not only pay their tipping is not. I should also point out that tipping is not actively discouraged in Europe. It's simply not expected because the idea is to pay people a livable wage at any job that they do. And that's just a concept
Tipping
we just don't.
Tipping in Europe is much more upscale.
Right. If you do exceptional at a place that it's like they wouldn't expect you to tip at Olive Garden.
No.
Or the equivalent franchise in Europe. That's the point.
Yeah.
In Europe, it's ye olde Olive Garden.
Yeah. Tipping is much more of a fine dining experience in Europe.
Right. Right. Because then it's like, well, okay. Also in upscale places, people are 10 times more likely to make unreasonable demands.
Yeah. Which is a difference from, say, Australia, where just the concept of tipping didn't really exist. This is said as someone who has experienced both firsthand. So, but yeah, it's like in response to workers realizing the power that they have. Republicans are shitting a brick over this because you got South Carolina's governor moving to divest from the $300 weekly unemployment benefit thing from the COVID.
Yeah, what's happening is that Republican governor, it's not just McMaster, it's other Republican governors too, are basically deciding to look at the situation as people are mooching off the unemployment benefit system and deciding to cut off unemployment benefits, or at least the enhanced one, to force people to go back to work. Problem is that you're supposed to be looking for jobs if you want to be on unemployment. So yeah, that's what's happening. Because the Republican response to this is, well, it's obviously people who are being lazy and being moochers, and they need to go back to work regardless of how they feel about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically the Republican response to this is, go to work, you lazy bums. Doesn't matter the complexity of the reason why they're not taking jobs in mass. It's, you're lazy, get up and get off your ass. That's the response to this.
Because Republicans are going to Republican.
Yeah, exactly.
Remember, the point of the economy is to make money for the sake of making money, not to serve the public.
Yep. That's it.
Anyway,
Let's talk a few minutes of entertainment.
okay. I suppose in entertainment news, in good news, Adult
What?
Swim finally righting some wrongs here.
I couldn't understand Kevin.
I thought Elon Musk was entertainment news, but yeah, get back what Adam was saying.
Yeah, not specifically because there was nothing entertaining about what he did.
Yeah, well, technically SNL is entertainment, but yeah. Anyway, Anyway.
That's a matter
But,
for debate.
Yeah, true. But anyway, bringing it back.
Yeah, anyway, Adult Swim has announced new movies for Metalocalypse, The Venture Brothers, and Aqua Teen Hunger Force.
Yeah.
Like,
Didn't they
One
kill
of those
is
at least has
especially-
already had a movie.
As I
yeah,
have a connection to Carrie Means, I thought they killed Master Frylock.
I don't know what they're going to do with Aqua Teen Hunger Force.
Okay.
Like,
Just saying, a key component of that trio is
Yeah, I mean,
deceased.
In real life or in fiction?
Obviously, I'm still talking to Carrie Means, so don't be obtuse.
Look, I don't know. Maybe you were alluding to the fact that the actor died. I know nothing about it. At any rate, bold of you to assume that Aqua Teen Hunger Force has a continuity that they actually care about.
Well, they kind of do, but
yeah.
but it's like, it'll be really interesting to see how they do that because,
the point is, nobody cares about the Aqua Teen Hunger Force movie. It's all about Venture Brothers and especially Metalocalypse.
Metalocalypse movie? Did you mean 90-minute fucking heavy metal video? I know they do actually have plots and stories, and it probably won't actually be like that, but they'll definitely have at least one ridiculous blowout musical sequence.
I was about to say, do not fucking say that to a actual fan of Metalocalypse.
Yeah.
They will fucking.
I was going to say, do not
about...
actually say what you just said to an actual Aqua Teen Hunger Force fan.
Yeah.
I'm like,
yeah.
Carrie still makes a living off of just going to conventions and being recognized as Frylock for crying out.
Oh, I know. No,
Being
I'm not saying Aqua Teen Hunger Force is bad. I'm just saying it's not.
I sold my show. I sold my show.
Kind of show.
I sold my show to the public on the idea that he was starring in it.
Yeah.
People give a shit about Aqua Teen Hunger Force.
No,
Yeah.
A big shit.
Yeah. The reason why it was on the air until when did it end?
well, yeah.
2015.
It's on balance, Aqua Teen's maybe the most popular. It's hard to say that between this and Venture because they both went on for fucking ever.
It's one of the longest continuously running cartoons on Cartoon Network's Adult Swim.
Yeah.
I mean, because if I'm not mistaken, Carrie was also involved in C-Lab 2021, and that show didn't nearly have the staying power.
No.
Even though it comes up every now and again.
Aqua Teen, no, C-Lab 2021 stuck around for too long. That went to shit when the captain, voice VO died.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
Here it's more about Metalocalypse finally getting some sort of finale because it ended on a big cliffhanger and they got their season 5 canceled. See also Venture Brothers with season 7.
Yeah, the Metalocalypse thing is happening because there's new brass in charge in Adult Swim now.
Yeah. Mike Lasso's finally fucking gone.
Yeah. There's like new people in charge really for the most part, so it's like it was probably a lot easier to get in the door here.
Well, that being said, the Venture Brothers shouldn't have been canceled. That was fucking AT&T for whatever reason.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like out of the three, it's definitely the ones that have unresolved things that are going on around them that are generating the most excitement. Aqua Teen Hunger Force just seems to be because it was it's one of our biggest properties, I guess. It's like there doesn't really seem to be a reason that we're getting another Aqua Teen Hunger Force movie. So nobody's complaining, but it's just more people are finally going to get the resolutions they've been crying out for, especially Metalocalypse. Good God.
The real question is, the real question is, are they going to accidentally cause another terror scare in Boston?
I would hope not.
Jesus, dude.
Because not just because of the not just because of the terrorists.
Network.
Yeah, not just because of the terrorist scare, but because that led us to the dark age of Cartoon Network.
Yeah.
Very shortly, the management behind that decision had to resign, and that's where we got God, what was his fucking name? Like
The Snyder Scorcher experience, Stuart Snyder.
Yeah, those two fucking idiots.
And of course,
although Scorcher came out on the good side at the end of the day.
True.
And of course, pivoting away from actual terrorism into emotional terrorism, next month we have season 5 of Rick and Morty coming out.
Yep.
Oh boy. Yep. Here we go again.
Look,
the new kings of Adult Swim, whether you like it or not.
Hey, they renewed it for 70 more episodes.
yeah.
I personally love the show. Just I'm not sure it's for the same reason that a lot of the other sycophants love the show.
Yes.
I watched the show, but I'll be honest, it's not something I'm super into.
Yeah.
Like, part of it's the fan base, but it's also, fucking nihilist Rick. Like, honestly, I thought this stuff was much better explored on BoJack Horseman.
Mm-hmm.
No.
And yet BoJack Horseman doesn't have the same staying power.
It doesn't have the same staying power that lasted for like 7 seasons.
Yeah.
Like, it's also Netflix is in much need of a super hit. Like, it's like, keep in mind, Adult Swim, it's Rick and Morty, and what else do you got right now? Genuine question. Like, China, Illinois? Fucking Bird Girl? I mean, I guess there's Tuca and Birdie, which is coming up here soon.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that Rick and Morty was renewed for enough episodes to put it at final total 60% more episodes than BoJack Horseman. So
I'm like, it's not really what I'm getting at here. It's like the episode count isn't necessarily the most important thing, lest we bring up some of the long runners. It's like, how well is Family Guy held up, in recent times, or or South Park
handling social issues a little better than South Park.
I'm like, I really don't want to pick one or the other in that regard, because they're both just awful.
I fell out of love with South Park when they started getting a little on the transphobic side.
Well, what are they on episode 4? Episode 5 of that?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I'm like, yeah, South Park. Yeah, South Park. Just Matt and Trey's fuck everyone attitude is.
Yeah. I mean,
it's starting to become punching down instead of punching up.
Starting to. They've always punched down.
Right.
Yeah. Yes.
It's just been more noticeable.
Yeah.
It's that their attitude is nobody is above being mocked.
Yeah.
Or it's like you are to be mocked for caring about shit. I still hear people quote the fucking turd sandwich and giant douche. Yeah. And I'm like, no. I had hoped that had died with 2016, but apparently not.
No.
Anything that feeds the shit posters is automatically comedy gold. You know that.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's distressing about South Park is they can find ways to make themselves relevant. Family Guy hasn't been able to do that in so very long. I'm sure.
Yeah.
I think that's because Seth MacFarlane caters way too much to the ADHD crowd.
Yeah.
Possibly.
It's very easy to lose the plot of your narrative if you're constantly cutting away from the point. And that's always been Family Guy's big problem. Is not that they don't hit hard on the social issues. It's the fact that you tend to forget about halfway through the episode what the hell they were talking about.
Well, yeah, that's because Family Guy, is just so very addicted to its long jokes and cutaways, and just trying to be like. Sometimes it delves into the world of, let's say, anti-humor.
Well, and then of course you have.
I mean, like the actual concept of anti-humor, like the Conway Twitty skits come to mind. They're just playing a segment of Conway Twitty,
because they have the rights to Conway Twitty.
Yeah, or they bought them, and
No, they had them.
Yeah.
They found out that they had them, and that's why they started doing the jokes.
Yeah.
And like I said, they play it in a very, Kaufman-esque way, or like I hesitate to say Tim and Eric. This isn't the kind of thing Tim and Eric would do. This is more, Andy Kaufman would showcase a Conway Twitty thing just to piss off an audience, like that. That's much more his brand of anti-humor.
Well, and if it ever comes out, I'm going to be watching season 3 of the Orville with a very wary eye, because one of the central jokes of the series is rape apology. And that came about. That kind of blindsided everybody in season 2 when they introduced us to Derulio and fleshed him out as a character, and basically suggested that his entire species is a hormonal version of the trope, the rape eye. And that nobody was actually responsible for the series of events that became the central butt of the joke of the series about the divorce between Mercer and totally blanking on the first officer's name, but anyway, Adrian Palicki's character. Ever since that came up to light, now I'm just like, Seth, you go and ruin everything.
Man, I think we should wrap this up for the week.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Alright, that's our show for the week. Be sure to join me tomorrow when I am working more on Honkai Impact the 3rd. And then, of course, Friday and Saturday we will be working the old Dusty Trail at Facebook Games. Probably more Overwatch competition, although I do still have some Blade and Soul left to play. And, of course, Sundays we have MS Saga A New Dawn with me and the Golics and the crew from the chat at Fragments of Silicon. Until then, until next time, I'm your host, Mac Holiday. Thanks for watching. Stay safe out there, kids.
Get vaccinated, kids.